Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are extending the idea of Islamic NATO with Turkey. And this is where we are looking at a trilateral defense agreement. But the real question is not the emergence of the name of the Islamic NATO, but the question, will it actually deliver for what it is building up? Will it actually convert into a better alliance, or is it just a hype that has been built up? Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session we are going to understand, yes, that what is this Islamic NATO which is developing, but at the same time we will have a better focus towards to understand that if it is something real that is coming, or is it just some hype. So when we are looking at the present scenario, the reason Islamic NATO word has again come up in conversation, because initially there was a defense pact which existed between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Now this was signed last year itself, but the main highlight of that defense pact was Article 5 like provision. What do I mean by Article 5 like provision? So when we are looking at NATO Alliance, North Atlantic Treaty Organization Alliance, they have Article 5 which talks about collective defense. That means one country being harmed, other will come to defend it, other will be there to attack also. So when Pakistan and Saudi Arabia signed this agreement, they made such a commitment to each other as well. But now this agreement is not just going to be between two parties, a third entity is also entering that, and that third entity is Turkey. So this will be a new trilateral defense agreement. Now broadly if you look at it, it is going to address things like military exercises, intelligence sharing, defense industrial cooperation, technology transfer and military training. It does not mention specifically this trilateral alliance that we are expecting. It is not mentioning anything Article 5 like, especially when we are talking about NATO. But as of now, what we are seeing, that the defense agreement between these two entities has been expanded. Now when we are looking at this situation, the first thing that we need to analyze here is, when we are looking at three countries coming together, there must be reasons enough for them to decide that they want to do this. And when we are looking at these three countries in the conversation, first Saudi Arabia, then we have Pakistan, and then we have Turkey. Now when we are looking at Saudi Arabia first, what Saudi Arabia broadly gives is the finance that is required for any pact, agreement, alliance to exist. But apart from that, it is not just about the financial power that Saudi is offering, it is also about the energy influence, the Gulf leadership, and most importantly, the strategic location. Now when we are looking at Saudi's location, it not only gives us entry into Red Sea, it also has a coast on Persian Gulf. So if we are looking at, this is the Arabian Peninsula, we have Red Sea right here, Persian Gulf here, Bab el-Mandeb here, and Strait of Hormuz here. So access to all these locations quite close by, and the connectivity through a proper pipeline for oil is also available. Next comes our unfortunate neighbor, that is Pakistan. In this context, we might think that what Pakistan can actually offer, we have talked about this before. Pakistan has actually the biggest thing to put on the table, that is the nuclear arsenal. So when we were discussing Islamic NATO from the context of just Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, that was the time we were analyzing, understanding that how Saudi Arabia in a way has access, indirect maybe, but access to nuclear arsenal. Apart from that, when we are talking about Pakistan, we can also understand that it is also the location which might be counted as an advantage here. But when we are looking at Turkey, the new player in this triangle, we have to understand that Turkey has major things that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan lack. What are these major things? First, when we are talking about defense industry, the indigenous defense industry, it is present here. That is just one thing. Then what we can get out of that? Drones, world-class defense equipments such as missile systems. And another factor that you are forgetting here, NATO, an alliance which we are drawing the comparison to, Turkey happens to be a member of NATO. So, NATO standard military expertise is available only with Turkey in this context, and with these three countries coming on the table together, even though as of now they have not announced anything on the lines of Article 5, but what they can do together raises big questions. And that is why again and again the term Islamic NATO is being used. Now, once we are talking about Islamic NATO in detail, we have understood the entities here. Now, the actual question arrives here, why the comparison is directly with NATO? Why not any other alliance? So, in this context, the first thing that we have to see is definitely the similarities. That why it was picked to be called as NATO, why not Islamic Quad or any other name? Now, when we are talking about similarities such as security cooperation that has been promised, such as joint military exercises, such as intelligence sharing across the dimensions, across the sectors, and then we also have the defense technology collab. In this context, the biggest important factor when we are looking at this is also joint production. And I am talking specifically about the trilateral agreement here. Now, similarities might be many when we are looking and comparing it with NATO, but at the same time, one of the biggest thing which can clearly be seen as a difference in this trilateral agreement, I am not talking about the bilateral agreement between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, in this trilateral agreement which is coming up between Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, is the fact that anything like Article 5 does not exist for them. And when we started the conversation with if it is actually going to materialize out, we actually need to see that what they are trying to do. When we are going for the name Islamic NATO, we need to understand that if they can deliver something for the Muslim world, or if they can actually deliver something for the broader global order at all, or is it just a hype that has been created? Is it something durable, or is it something that has been created just to be doomed? So in this context, you also have to understand, as of now, we cannot call it NATO because there is no integrated military command present. Unlike NATO, NATO has a proper integrated military command. When we are talking about headquarters, no headquarters. When we are looking at financial broader commitments and the leader amongst this, that has not been announced, and all this clearly point out to the lack of certain situations which enable NATO, which have powered NATO in a different way, especially in the global order. Now, how much muscle this trilateral agreement holds in the name of Islamic NATO, you will be able to understand that when we look at what are the broader challenges, or if you want to understand, we can also understand it through that can they actually deliver for the Muslim world. For this purpose, we have to first look into what Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey are trying to do. What is their purpose? As of now, it seems like they are looking into joint production, they are looking into defense equipments, intelligence sharing, maritime security and more. But these are the broader headings. What we have to understand that these three countries are present there to ensure their strategic priorities are fulfilled. But an alliance cannot function for very long if the strategic priority of the members of alliance is not the same. For example, if we are talking about Indian Ocean Regional Association, IORA, if the entities present there, they are not on the same page that Indian Ocean has much more potential, it needs to be protected from the encroachment of other countries which are using different policies, debt trap policies and other, then that organization, association will not function. Similarly, when NATO members this year when Greenland incident happened, they were not on the same page. What was being talked about? that NATO is finished. WTO, members not on the same line, dispute resolution mechanism is present, but resolution is not happening. What is being talked about? WTO is not functioning, it's finished. So when we are looking at the priorities, they need to be pretty much on the same ground. For example, when we are looking at World Trade Organization, we think that all the countries want to ensure that global trade is facilitated. If there is one country which will ensure that this will not happen, then they cannot be part of that organization. So in this context, because we have only 3 countries as of now, when we look deeper into their strategic priorities, we clearly find that they are in very different directions. Because when we are talking about Pakistan, if you talk about what is Pakistan's biggest worry, if you talk about what is Pakistan's biggest worry, I can name only 3. Afghanistan, the continuous tussle that we have seen. Of course, how can we forget our name, India? And third, internal security. When we are looking at the Balochistan front, the internal security issue. Their strategic priority is different. When we are looking at Saudi Arabia, the biggest concern as of now in Gulf remains Iran. Of course, energy prices, how they can be balanced, and also security in Gulf. Now let's come to Turkey. Now when we are looking at Turkey, you will be able to see that how these strategic priorities are absolutely different. Turkey, Kurdish issue present. Syria, big problem. Then we also have a big concern for Turkey, that is the Eastern Mediterranean. Now in this context, when you look at their priorities, do you think even if there is a single pointer which matches? Now another thing that does not match at all is the competing foreign policy alignments. How we are saying competing foreign policy alignments? In this context, the biggest factor that you have to consider, who are their major partners. Now, for example, if we are looking at Saudi Arabia, US, important ally, but for Turkey, does not work. This does not work. When we are looking at Saudi Arabia, in recent years, they have been partnering well with India. Pakistan would never ever consider that. Turkey has been approaching India, but because of the stance that Turkey has been taking, especially when we are talking about the issue of Kashmir, when we are talking about what happened in Pahalgam, Turkey not will function for India. So the foreign policy partners and alignments are very different. They are operating in very different circles, and it does not seem like when we see a Venn diagram, we do not see that there will be a conclusive alignment that these 3 countries might be able to find in terms of foreign policy. And that is further fueled by the regional divisions that already exist. Specifically for this point, we have to understand that when we are looking at deliverability, representability of Muslim world, we are not including at least one of the biggest entities here, that is Iran. And even if when we are talking about Gulf countries, let's exclude Iran for a minute, the interests which are present, they are absolutely divergent. So in such bifurcated, differentiated and competing alignments which are present between these 3 countries, what is being pitched as something very solid, ever changing, does not seem that solid as of now. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think that Islamic NATO will be one of the bigger alliances that we will see in the upcoming time? At the same time, let me remind you, there is conversation about Mediterranean Quad also, which is being proposed with India. Can you tell me in the comment section which are the 3 countries and India which are proposing to set up Mediterranean Quad to counter-influence Islamic NATO? Now the last thing that we need to discuss here is to understand that when we are looking at Islamic NATO, do we as a country need to worry about this? Of course we do, because implications across the dimensions for India are going to change. Because when we are seeing Pakistan and Turkey coming together, be it in the name of defense, we clearly know this is definitely going to help Pakistan in its military abilities. There will be better usage of defense technology by Pakistan, be it drone and other collaboration that might come through Turkey. Apart from that, this also directly points out to the fact that there will be a greater strategic coordination in Arabian Sea and Western Indian Ocean with two partners, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And if we are looking at India, as of now, we are focusing on deepening our diplomatic ties, be it with Saudi Arabia, be it with UAE, enhancing our defense cooperation so that we have our defense capabilities right in place, be it with France, US, Israel, and ensure that we are not dependent in terms of connectivity with any partner. That means we are not putting our eggs in one basket. Initially, it was Chabar port, then we worked on IMEC, and we are also further looking for multiple options so as to ensure that we do not suffer if the alliance, the priorities, or some nation's foreign policy all of a sudden changes, like we have seen, especially since President Donald Trump stepped into his chair. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. I'll be waiting for your answers, and I'll be leaving you here with the prelims practice question. Let me know the answer to this as well. Very easy, geography location based, something that you should know, practice for exam. So let me know the answer to this in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.